Okay, great. Thanks. Welcome. I'm here today to talk about user experience design and how you can drive your success with UX. A little bit about me. I started my career as a technical writer, and when I got my master's degree in information design and technology, I moved into the UX space. I am a senior manager at Workday, where I lead a team of people who are innovating the enterprise. I've worked for a 100-year-old medical device company, which was a really interesting place to begin my official journey with UX design. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area with my 3 kids, husband, and Tallulah the Wonder Beagle. It's a little early here today, but hopefully you can see me. I think the sun's starting to come up. This is Tallulah. She's very sweet, and she's also very happy to have all of us home during the pandemic. So let's just jump in. Trips are fun. During normal times, I'd love to travel. There are so many places to go, but not enough time. When the pandemic is over, where will you travel to first? When you're planning a trip and thinking about driving your success, right, on that trip, there are some typical steps you go through to ensure you have a smooth experience. You might research your destination, research the best way to get there, ask some people who've been there what they did when they were there. You might even hire a tour guide to show you around. You may also uncover insights about the destination that may deter you from going in the first place or go to a different place. Today, I'm going to talk with you about UX design and some initial methods that will help you to uncover insights to increase the confidence in where you're going with what you're trying to accomplish, all around putting the user at the center of everything you do. So like I said, we don't want to choose the wrong route to get to our destination, right? We don't want to just jump in the car and start driving. We prepare. We put out our destination in Waze or some other mapping application to get us there on time. UX is a lot like planning a trip. We want to know where we're going, how we're going to get there, what we'll do once we get there. And we don't want to plan a trip to Paris, for instance, and end up in Fresno. No offense to Fresno. UX design is comprised of many disciplines. Under that umbrella, there are disciplines like communication design, interaction design, information architecture, human factors and ergonomics, industrial design, architecture, computer science, and more. I have worked with people in UX from all of these disciplines. And what's awesome about how wide this umbrella is how many different perspectives are brought to the table. When we're building out teams, I love to say that a candidate would be a great culture add instead of a culture fit. We don't want everyone to be the same as us. We want diversity, and we value how different perspectives challenge us to think in different ways. So this is a really important quote. If you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. Bad design can be costly in losing your target market, or even worse, it could be harmful. Let's look at a couple of examples of some really bad design. In this example, this is a pretty bad example. What floor are you going to? What button do you push? What's a label? What's a button? A little bit rough, right? This is something that could harm somebody, right? I mean, tasers and handguns look very similar. So the affordance for grabbing a gun versus grabbing a taser is so much the same that it could, really harm someone, especially in stressful situations when you have to make a decision last minute. Here's another, interesting arrow placement. And for some reason, elevators seem to be a bit infamous for, these strange designs. And here's an interesting one. So when I was in my undergrad program, I was learning more about usability testing. My professor was facilitating a study for IBM. She was telling us this story. And the user was so frustrated that he picked up his keyboard and threw it at his computer. I was shocked that someone could get that upset about a product not working the way they expected it to. But the reality is, we are all spending more time than ever with our technologies, and we truly rely on them for really important parts of our day. When people oversimplify designing the right product, there could be a surprise. So this seems pretty simple, right? You have 3 cat bowls here, cat food bowls, but the users of these bowls decided to use them in completely different ways. So without insight from our users, we may be missing out on understanding key behavior that we didn't see coming. We want our users to love our product. We don't want to just have them tolerate it. So what can make our users jump for joy? How can we truly see them and understand their needs? UX is one way to get there. We put users at the center of everything we do, and we find ways to navigate the complexity of desire and motivation through a user-centered approach. Empathy is key, and we have a number of different tools to provide insight. While I'm focusing on UX in this talk, our partnerships with our product and dev stakeholders are so key. We can't do this alone, and I hope they know they can't do it alone either. We really need partnerships in each other to drive success. So let's take a look at this typical design process. Design is messy. There is a squishy, uncertain beginning where everyone is most uncomfortable. Even though UXers are used to it, it's still a very uncomfortable place to dwell too long. Often when I'm partnering with my PM colleagues, they're wondering where we're going early on. They want a straight line to delivery pretty early on before we really are certain about the direction that we're moving in. Sometimes it can feel like we're spinning our wheels, but ultimately the more we can do early on in the process, the smoother it will be when we get closer to building whatever we're building. No one wants a surprise late in the game. Let's take a look at this hierarchy of design effort. At the very foundation is that of function. As we move up, we put our focus on other areas: reliability, usability, convenience, desirability, and finally meaning. Apple, for instance, is not satisfied with something just working. I'd like to see someone try to pry an iPhone away from another person. Many people see their iPhone as an extension of their body. One typical way to get a clearer picture of our user is through the use of a persona. Personas are, you're trying to build that empathy and really flesh out that picture of the person that you're designing a product for. This persona likely is your target user, but in other products and projects and companies, I've used kind of a persona map where we have a bullseye effect and we say, okay, this is our target user in the center, but we also need to consider our secondary and tertiary personas just to consider what they might be doing or working around that target persona. So we're, trying to understand their interests. What are some primary pain points? What do they care deeply about? What's going on in their sphere that we need to understand to really design the best product for us? So we're going over a lot of different methods to kind of uncover and flesh out that persona or that user that we're looking at. And a big method that we use in UX is called the double diamond approach. And let's dig into this a little bit here. We start out by trying to understand the problem space. Do we understand the problem? Do we have the right problem? If we understand the problem, should we even be solving it? Who is the target user? Do we understand their unarticulated needs? Once we understand the problem, then we can explore the solution space. How are we going to get there? Let's take a more detailed look at the double diamond in another view. So we're increasing our confidence as we move to the right here. we have some early research. We might be looking at secondary research. We might be getting insights from all of that research. Then we're identifying themes. We're looking for opportunity areas. Sometimes in research, we think we understand the problem. An insight comes through that's like, oh, we didn't realize this other problem was going on at the same time. Let's take a look at that and explore how we might be able to integrate that into our solution space. Then we start looking at maybe some how might we statements, which I'll go over in a moment. Then we diverge again. We're looking at ideating on different solutions, evaluating how those solutions are doing in front of users, maybe looking for more ideas to be injected. And then we build, test, and iterate over and over until we've landed on the right product for that target user. So we're increasing confidence, we're understanding our user, we're looking at how might we do this in the best way, and we have to balance all of those things, right? We're balancing our user needs with the technology we have available to us and what the business needs to do in the next quarter, for instance. So let's take a look at some how might we building statements here. We'll start over on the left side here on insights. So the user might follow artists and stay up to date with them through social media. The needs, users need to stay up to date with artists within an app. Point of view statements, Emily needs to stay up to date with artists within an app because she follows artists and stays up to date with them through social media. And the how might we question might be, how might we help Emily to stay up to date with artists within an app? So we're looking at, we're kind of breaking this down, right? We're trying to break it down into key motivation points so that we can understand what our users need and where they're going. Another how might we statement, how might we help Emily to share music directly within the app, and how might we provide Emily a way to talk to other people within the app? So we have observations and insights on the left. We start looking at the needs. We look at those statements from that user's point of view, and then we like to put it in this how might we statement so that we open up the way that we look at this problem. Here's another example. So the insight, majority of people discovered new things to do through the internet and through friends. Users need to find out if any of their friends have traveled to a certain destination. Dan is traveling to Tokyo in June and needs to know which of his friends can give him solid recommendations. So how might we help Dan get recommendations from his friends who have traveled to Tokyo? And I think you get the idea. We're really just trying to open up how we're looking at the insight and making sure that we're reframing it from our user's perspective and we understand their motivation. So when we're looking at product design, this is all just in the spirit of not just identifying the minimum viable product, but uncovering truly what our target users desire. We might start out by testing a prototype in front of them. It's a simple drawing of a donut. The minimum viable product might be a plain donut, but through the insights of our users and understanding our target, we understand they're really seeking a donut with sprinkles on top. This is another kind of famous way to look at a minimum viable product. In these two examples, one will make a user happy as they get to their ultimate product of a car, right? But the second row really gets us there along the way. So as you're building a product, maybe you can only, the vision is number 5, right? But the company might not be able to viably build that year. So we start small, we start building on those things until we ultimately get to the desired product by our target user. So as I said before, UX design is a team sport. There are many, many methods to get at the insights. And if you're ever lucky enough to work with a team of UXers, we geek out on Post-it notes. During the pandemic, we've moved to tools like Miro and Google to collaborate with each other remotely. But I want to bring you back to the design process again. We listen. So a colleague at work calls this beyond the sticky when we analyze, okay? And then we are looking at possible solutions, validating them with users. And there's lots and lots and lots of iteration to make sure that we have the right product. There comes a point where you do have to come together with a plan so that you can meet your business needs on time. And that's all about just making sure that we're completely aligned with our product partners and our dev partners. So Henry Ford, people have said, he said, there's been some debate if he really did say this, but the quote is, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, which is exactly why we can't just ask our users what they want, right? We really have to understand them. We have to understand their pain points, what their motivations are. And another typical method that we use to get at that are the 5 whys. And by the way, I know we're talking about a lot of methods, and I hope you appreciate the fact that there are many paths to learn more about our user, but the ones we're going over today are some of my favorites. So Toyota has the 5 whys that they've used since the 1930s. It was really used to get at the root cause of a problem. So, by the way, I completely made up these 5 whys for the Ford's or faster horses problem. But the point is, if you ask why 5 times, you'll likely get to the bottom of it. What are you trying to uncover? People didn't want faster horses, but the car did not exist. It just didn't exist. So how can we uncover the core motivation to get to the primary problem? The 5 whys is the way to get to it. So another way that we look at understanding user needs, this is kind of a jobs to be done statement. So as an expense business partner, this is in my world at Workday. I work in the expenses space. I want to provide an automated answers to simple questions so I can focus on strategic expense goals related to our company spend. So the extended product team and UX got together in a room and we drafted a number of jobs to be done statements just like this. We had a bunch of papers with this template on it. We had time to write them down. And, we all put them on the wall, taped them up, and we voted on what we thought were the most important jobs to be done statements. And this was a way to just make sure that we're focused on the right things after we did research and we had insights to our users to understand their pain points. So another tool you can use to uncover user insights is the empathy map. What a user says is not always aligned with what they think and how they feel or what they actually do. So let's take a closer look at this. Who are we empathizing with? We've talked about the who a lot, right? What do they need to do? What do they see? What do they say when they're working through it? And oftentimes, people who are working especially, they have procedures they're supposed to follow. So what they do and what they say they do might be slightly different. And that's why it's so important to observe and understand our users. What are their pains? What are their primary goals? And here's the amazing news for all of this. You can even UX yourself. It's the ultimate team self-help. I'm a big believer in turning all of these tools on yourself, personally and professionally. I have a colleague at work who actually used a UX method to help her family determine what they should do over summer vacation. Family goals, right? Seriously, understanding your team and the root cause of some pain is a beautiful thing. This is another reason why I love UX. I'm a passionate people leader who believes in putting humans at the center of everything I do. And all of these UX methods are a great way to do it. So a good place to start, by the way, I have no affiliation to these books. They've just been on my bookshelf for years. They were kind of my Bible for UX methods and principles of design. So they're a golden resource. They really walk you through a number of different methods that will help you uncover the right insights. Just to give you a peek inside, this is an example of card sorting exercise that we didn't talk about today, but it's just one of the many methods that you can use to understand the information architecture expectation from users. And as you can see, there's an overview of the method, what phase in the design process this best fits in. And it even illustrates what the method might look like when you execute it. So I find this a really useful resource, especially for people who are interested in learning more about UX and aren't quite sure where to start. Pour yourself into these books and kind of take a look. So where do you begin to drive success with UX? We have done our exhaustive research on the world map here, and we've uncovered a lot of ways to get started. We want to truly understand the problem, develop empathy for your user. We want to partner with other teams to uncover insights, and we want to analyze those insights using the double diamond. We're going to iterate, iterate, and iterate again. And then hopefully we've solved the problem, all while being user-centered. And I'm a big believer that UX can save the world, because we're really, in this to put the real problem right at the center of what we do, understanding that user and how we can help. Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
So I think we have about 5 minutes, Teresa. If you're open for questions, I can read some out of the chat log.
Sure, that'd be great.
Awesome. So Janet asked, how do you manage design thinking within the constraints of policy and regulation?
That's a really good question. So when I worked at the medical device company, that was a very important piece of what we did. We had a design history file, and we had to be aware of those regulations and how we could navigate product development. And it was just very important to partner with the right stakeholders, right? So we had our QA stakeholders, we had our product stakeholders, we had our engineering, and just making sure that we're documenting along the way those design decisions based on those insights from research. That was another thing that was a bit difficult. Sometimes users would provide insight like, if I see another battery for my device, I'm going to throw this through the window because they just were done with batteries. They needed to just recharge things. Clinicians didn't want to have to think about replacing batteries. And the PM was really feeling strongly that we should include batteries. And so that actually helped us in the regulated environment to document the design decision, keep track of that history so that we understand why we're not doing something. We don't always have to do it. Sometimes the business dictates that we can't really move in a particular direction, right?
All right, Kenyatta asks, what advice or recommendations might you give to someone interested in beginning a career in UI UX design, i.e. education, training, mentorships, etc.?
Yeah, there's a number of boot camps out there that are available, for people who are interested in stepping into UX design. And I encourage you to reach out to people on LinkedIn. You can certainly reach out to me. I'm happy to have a chat with anyone who's interested, but, really tap into your network. I'm sure you're connected to some people in UX. And if not, you can take a look at those UX boot camps as a good way. They're usually, 6 to 8 weeks long. And it's a great deep dive into the space.
Margie asks, how do you help the product owner get on board to answering the 5 whys and spending the time to create something exceptional? Many times the PO is so busy that they just want you to go off and get it done.
Yeah, I've definitely encountered that in the past. And, I think it's all about connection and really building the relationship with that stakeholder. At Workday, we have a small UX team compared to the rest of the organization. I think we're up to like employee number 17,000 now, and we have about 160 people in UX. So we definitely have to make trade-off decisions about where to put our time. And sometimes we've had to make the tough business decision for ourselves to engage in a different area if the product owner isn't open to working with us, which, you know, there are different pressures, there are different things driving that behavior. But what I've found success with in the past is truly building that connection and relationship with that partner, and not just when it really matters, but really building upon the relationship as we're working together. So I think that's really key.
I'll try and squeeze in another with the time. So what is the best way to find common ground solutioning between the asks from the internal business stakeholders and an external user or focus group when they're not aligned?
Yeah, so one of the best ways that we found to get alignment with our extended product team after research is to have everyone synthesize that research together. Let's make sure we're all observing the same research. Even when you're observing the same research, you can have very different observations because we're humans, right? And we have different things that we notice. So bringing that team together in the same room or the same Zoom room during the pandemic, and just breaking down what we saw and then having that healthy discussion around that. I think that that's a great way to kind of get alignment when there's disconnect.
And the very last one, Rebecca wants to know if you have any Miro templates that have been really valuable to get your team to generate great work virtually, or Google templates, or how you're running that.
You know, we seem to be trying different things with every remote session that we did. I was in one last week that did the 5 whys that had sort of a step down for the 5 whys. And we did that as a group when we were talking about our purpose, our team purpose together. But there's so many great resources out there for those mediums actually. And so I think just, you know, I think it's a really important thing to just not be afraid to try some different things, maybe do a dry run with your core team before you roll it out into a session.
All right, and right on time, we'll end with thank you. There's plenty of those in the chat, and on behalf of the organizers committee, Teresa, thank you so much for your time and insights today. Really great.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Teresa.